The night Aurora Vale walked into that rundown bar, she was playing a game she'd never lost. Her best friend had bet her $10,000 that she couldn't make any man fall for her in 3 months. She'd laughed at the challenge. Billionaires didn't lose bets to bartenders. But when Ryan Mercer looked at her like she was just another exhausted customer and asked if she wanted water instead of champagne, something shifted. He didn't see her money. He didn't see her power. He just saw someone who looked tired. And for the first time in years, Aurora had no idea what to do next. If you want to see how this impossible story unfolds, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Ryan Mercer was 32 years old, and he'd stopped believing in luck around the same time his wife walked out on him and their infant son. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of working double shifts, scraping together tuition for night classes, and pretending he wasn't drowning. 7 years of telling himself that someday things would get easier, even though the evidence kept proving otherwise. Tonight was a Thursday, which meant the anchor and chain would be slow. The bar sat on the edge of Ravenport's dock district, wedged between a closed fish market and a pawn shop that had been going out of business for the last decade. The building smelled like stale beer and old wood, and the neon sign outside had been missing the H in anchor since before Ryan started working there. He didn't mind the quiet. Quiet meant he could study between customers, flipping through his criminal law textbook while wiping down glasses that would never really come clean. His exam was in 6 days, and he hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 2 weeks. But that was normal. Sleep was something other people did. The rain started around 9, turning the streets outside into black mirrors. Ryan watched it through the window, the way it pooled in the potholes and ran down the cracked sidewalks. Weather like this usually kept people home, which was fine with him. Less noise, less conversation, less energy he didn't have to give. Then the door opened. She stood there for a moment, rain dripping from her coat, and Ryan's first thought was that she'd walked into the wrong place. Women who looked like that didn't come to bars like this. Her coat probably cost more than he made in 6 months. Her hair was dark and perfect despite the storm, pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. And when she looked around the empty room, her expression was the kind of carefully neutral that rich people wore when they were trying not to look horrified. Ryan set down his textbook and straightened up behind the bar. "We're open," he said. She walked toward him, heels clicking on the worn floorboards. Up close, she was even more out of place. Everything about her screamed money, the kind of money that didn't just buy things, it bought options, choices, freedom. "What can I get you?" Ryan asked. She sat down on one of the bar stools, studying him with eyes that were sharp and assessing. "What do you recommend?" "Depends on what you're looking for." "Surprise me." Ryan almost smiled at that. People who said "surprise me" usually had very specific expectations about what kind of surprise they wanted. But he reached for the whiskey anyway, not the expensive stuff they kept for special occasions, just the decent mid-shelf bottle that tasted better than it had any right to. He poured 2 fingers into a clean glass and set it in front of her. "You look like you could use water too." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Do I?" Most people who come in during a storm are either running from something or running to something. Either way, hydration helps. She picked up the glass, studying the amber liquid like it might contain answers to questions she hadn't asked yet. "Which one are you?" "Sorry?" "Running from something or running to something?" Ryan grabbed a towel and started wiping down the bar between them, giving his hand something to do. "I'm just working." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." She took a sip of the whiskey, and something in her expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. "This is good." "Don't sound so shocked." "I didn't mean—" She stopped herself, then laughed. It was a real laugh, not the polished kind. "Okay, I did mean it that way. I'm sorry. That was rude. You're not the first person to walk in here expecting the worst." "But you still gave me the good stuff." Ryan shrugged. "You asked me to surprise you." She set the glass down carefully, her fingers still wrapped around it. "I'm Aurora." "Ryan." "Do you usually work alone, Ryan?" "Thursday nights, yeah. Owner figures one person can handle the crowd." He gestured to the empty room. "Not exactly a gamble." Aurora glanced around again, and Ryan saw her taking it all in. The peeling paint, the jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked in years, the neon beer signs that buzzed and flickered. How long have you worked here? 5 years, give or take. You like it? It pays the bills. That's not what I asked. Ryan stopped wiping the bar and looked at her directly. Most people who asked questions like that were just making conversation, filling silence because they were uncomfortable with it. But something in the way Aurora was watching him suggested she actually wanted an answer. No, he said finally. I don't particularly like it, but it's flexible, and I need flexible. Why? Because I'm in law school, and I have a kid, and I don't have the luxury of only doing things I like. The words came out sharper than he'd intended, but Aurora didn't flinch. If anything, she looked more interested. How old? My son, 7. That's young to be raising a kid alone. He was younger when I started. Aurora took another sip of whiskey, her eyes never leaving his face. Law school and single parenting, that's ambitious. That's life. Most people would say that's too much. Ryan picked up his textbook from where he'd left it under the bar and set it back down in front of him, a subtle signal that this conversation was getting more personal than he had energy for. Most people aren't in my situation. But Aurora didn't take the hint. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the bar. What kind of law? Criminal prosecution. So you want to put people in prison. I want to hold people accountable when they hurt others. There's a difference. Is there? Ryan met her gaze, trying to figure out if she was genuinely curious or just arguing for sport. Rich people did that sometimes, poked at other people's beliefs like they were testing the quality of furniture before deciding whether to buy it. Yeah, he said. There is. Because accountability isn't just about punishment. It's about victims getting to see that what happened to them mattered, that someone cared enough to stand up and say this was wrong. Aurora was quiet for a moment, turning her glass in slow circles on the bar. That's idealistic. Maybe. You don't think the system's broken? I think the system's full of cracks, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying to fix from the inside. And you think you can do that? Fix it? Ryan felt something tighten in his chest, that familiar mix of frustration and determination that had been driving him forward for years. I think I can try, which is more than most people do. Aurora smiled, but it wasn't condescending. It was something else, something that looked almost like respect. Fair enough. The rain picked up outside, drumming harder against the windows. Ryan glanced at the clock above the bar, 9:47. He still had 2 hours before close, and if Aurora was his only customer, that meant 2 hours of this conversation unless she decided to leave. What about you? He asked, partly out of genuine curiosity and partly to shift the attention off himself. What do you do? I run a company. What kind of company? The kind that makes a lot of money. Ryan waited for more, but she didn't offer it. That's impressively vague. I'm impressively private. Then why are you sitting in a dive bar in the middle of a storm having a conversation with a stranger? Aurora's smile faded slightly, and for just a second Ryan saw something underneath the polish, something raw and real. Because sometimes strangers are easier to talk to than people who know you. That, Ryan understood. He picked up the whiskey bottle and poured himself a small glass, breaking his own rule about drinking while working. But it was a slow night, and something about this woman made him feel like the normal rules didn't quite apply. To strangers, he said, lifting his glass. Aurora lifted hers and tapped it against his. To strangers. They drank in silence for a moment, and Ryan found himself studying her the way she'd been studying him. She was beautiful, that was obvious, but it was the tired kind of beautiful, the kind that came from too many late nights and too much pressure and not enough of whatever it was that made people feel like human beings instead of machines. You said you have a son, Aurora said, breaking the silence. What's his name? Owen. Does he know what you're trying to do? The law school thing? Ryan shook his head. He's 7. He knows I go to class sometimes and that I study a lot, but he doesn't really understand why. What will you tell him when he's old enough to ask? That I wanted to build something better for him, that I wanted him to see that you don't have to accept the hand you're dealt. Is that what you're doing? Not accepting the hand you were dealt? Ryan thought about his wife leaving, about his mother getting sick 3 years ago and moving in with him because she couldn't afford her own place anymore, about the student loans piling up and the shifts at the bar, and the way Owen sometimes asked why Daddy was always so tired. "I'm doing what I have to do," he said quietly. Aurora nodded slowly, like she understood something he hadn't quite said out loud. "That's harder than it sounds." "Yeah, it is." They sat there in the near-empty bar, rain hammering the windows, and Ryan felt something strange happening. This woman, this stranger who'd walked in out of the storm, wasn't treating him like a bartender or a student or a struggling single dad. She was just talking to him like a person, like someone whose thoughts mattered. It had been a long time since anyone had done that. "Can I ask you something?" Aurora said after a while. "Sure. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because it was practical or necessary or good for your son, just because it made you happy?" Ryan opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. He couldn't remember. That was the honest truth. He genuinely could not remember the last time he'd done something purely for himself. "That's what I thought," Aurora said softly. "What about you?" Ryan shot back, feeling defensive. "When's the last time you did something that wasn't about business or money or whatever empire you're running?" Her smile was sad. "I can't remember either." "Then we're both pretty pathetic. Or we're both just really good at surviving." Ryan laughed despite himself. "That's a generous way to put it. I'm a generous person." "Are you?" Aurora considered the question seriously, swirling the last of her whiskey. "I don't know anymore. I used to think I was, but somewhere along the way, I started measuring everything by what it cost and what it returned. People, relationships, time. It all became transactional." "That sounds lonely." "It is." She looked up at him, and Ryan saw something vulnerable in her expression. "Is that why you're alone? Because you can't afford the transaction?" The question hit harder than it should have. Ryan set down his glass and gripped the edge of the bar, feeling the worn wood under his palms. "I'm alone because I don't have the energy to pretend I'm someone I'm not, and most people want the pretense more than they want the reality." "What's the reality?" "That I'm 32, working at a bar, barely making it through law school, raising a kid by myself, and taking care of my sick mother. I don't have time for dating or romance or whatever people call it these days. I barely have time to sleep." "But you want those things. Dating, romance." Ryan hesitated. The honest answer was yes. The practical answer was that it didn't matter what he wanted. Wanting something and being able to have it are two different things. What if someone didn't need you to pretend? Then they'd be lying. Everyone needs something. Aurora finished her whiskey and set the glass down with a soft click. "What if I told you I just needed someone to talk to? No pretense, no expectations, just conversation." Ryan studied her carefully, trying to figure out what game this was. Because it had to be a game. Women who looked like Aurora Vale didn't walk into bars like the Anchor and Chain looking for conversation with men like him unless they wanted something. "I'd say that sounds too good to be true," he said finally. "Maybe it is." Aurora stood up, reaching for her coat. "Or maybe we're both so used to things being complicated that we don't recognize simple when we see it." She pulled out her wallet, a sleek black thing that probably cost more than his car, and set $200 bills on the bar. "That's too much," Ryan said automatically. "Consider it payment for the therapy session." "I'm not a therapist." "No, you're better. You're honest." Aurora buttoned her coat and turned toward the door, then paused. "I come to Ravenport on business sometimes. Would it be okay if I stopped by again?" Every practical instinct Ryan had screamed at him to say no. This woman was trouble. Maybe not the dangerous kind, but definitely the complicated kind. And he didn't have room in his life for complicated. But when he opened his mouth, what came out was, "Sure, if you want." Aurora smiled, really smiled, like he'd given her something valuable instead of just a lukewarm permission. "I want." Then she was gone, disappearing into the rain and the darkness beyond the windows. Ryan stood behind this bar, staring at the $200 bills and the empty glass she'd left behind. He should have said no. He knew that. But something about the way she'd looked at him, like he was real, like he mattered, had short-circuited every defense he'd built over the last 7 years. Ryan picked up her glass and washed it carefully, watching the water run clear. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. The next 3 days passed in their usual blur. Ryan worked his shifts, studied for his exam, made breakfast for Owen, helped his mother with her medications, and collapsed into bed each night too exhausted to dream. He told himself he wouldn't think about Aurora. She was just another customer, just another person passing through his life on their way to somewhere better. But he thought about her anyway. Monday night, the bar was busier than usual, some kind of darts tournament that brought in the regulars and their friends. Ryan was in the middle of pulling beers when he saw her walk in. She wasn't dressed like before. Tonight she wore jeans and a simple black sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked younger somehow, less armored. Aurora waited until he'd finished serving the darts crowd, then slid onto the same bar stool she'd occupied on Thursday. "Hi." "Hi," Ryan said, trying to ignore the way his pulse kicked up. "Whiskey?" "Please." He poured her drink and set it down in front of her, along with a glass of water he didn't bother explaining this time. Aurora smiled when she saw it. "Slow night?" she asked. "Monday tournament. It'll quiet down in an hour or so." "Do you need me to leave? I don't want to distract you from work." "You're fine." They sat in comfortable silence while Ryan handled the other customers. Aurora sipped her whiskey and watched him work, and Ryan found himself hyper-aware of her presence, the way she tracked his movements, the small smile she gave when he made someone laugh, the focused attention she paid to everything around her. When the darts crowd finally cleared out around 10:30, Ryan grabbed a beer for himself and leaned against the bar across from her. "So, business in Ravenport again?" "Something like that." "You going to tell me what kind of business you're actually in, or is the mystery part of your brand?" Aurora laughed. "Real estate development, high-end properties, mostly commercial." "How high-end are we talking?" "The kind where I design entire districts instead of individual buildings." Ryan let out a low whistle. "That's not just a company, that's an empire." "I prefer carefully constructed kingdom." "How careful can it be if you're hanging out in places like this?" "Maybe I'm tired of careful." Aurora traced her finger around the rim of her glass. "Or maybe I'm just tired." "I get that." "Do you? You seem like you run on a different kind of fuel than the rest of us." Ryan snorted. "If by fuel you mean stubbornness and caffeine, then sure." "How was your exam?" He blinked, surprised she remembered. "Saturday? It went okay, I think. Won't know for sure until grades post." "When do you graduate?" "If everything goes according to plan, next May." "And then what?" "Then I take the bar exam. Then I look for a prosecutor position. Then I figure out how to pay off the mountain of debt I've accumulated." Aurora was quiet for a moment, studying him with that intense focus he was starting to recognize. "Do you ever resent it? All of this?" "Some days more than others." "But you don't quit." "Can't afford to." "That's not the same thing as not wanting to." Ryan met her eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. "No, I don't want to quit, even on the bad days, because every time I think about giving up, I think about Owen asking me why I stopped, and I don't have a good answer for that." "Your son's lucky to have you." "He'd probably disagree. I'm not around as much as I should be." "You're around as much as you can be. That's different." "Is it?" "Yes." Aurora said it with such certainty that Ryan almost believed her. "My father was around constantly when I was growing up. Present in body, absent in everything else. He taught me that being there and actually showing up are two completely different things." "Your dad sounds like a piece of work." "He was. He built the company I now run. When he died 5 years ago, everyone expected me to sell it and live off the money. Instead, I gutted the entire operation and rebuilt it from scratch." "Why?" "Because I wanted to prove I could do it better than he did. That I wasn't just his daughter riding his coattails." "Did you? Do it better?" Aurora's smile was sharp. "I tripled the revenue in 3 years and expanded into 6 new markets. So yeah, I did it better." Ryan raised his beer in a small salute. "Impressive." "It should be. I gave up everything else for it." "Any regrets?" She took a long time answering that question, her fingers tightening around her glass. "Yes, but not about the business." "What then?" I regret that I'm 30 years old and I can count on one hand the number of real conversations I've had in the last 5 years. I regret that I've built something massive and successful and completely hollow. I regret that I'm so good at winning that I forgot what I was supposed to be winning for. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest in a way that made Ryan's chest ache. He knew that feeling, the one where success stopped meaning anything because there was nobody to share it with. "So why don't you change it?" he asked quietly. "Because I don't know how. I've optimized every part of my life for efficiency and profit. I don't know how to optimize for happiness." "Maybe you're not supposed to optimize it. Maybe you're just supposed to let it happen." Aurora looked at him like he'd said something profound instead of obvious. "Is that what you do?" Ryan laughed. "Are you kidding? I optimize everything. I have to. There's no room for spontaneity when you're juggling as many things as I am." "Then how do you know what happiness looks like?" "I don't. But I know what Owen's laugh sounds like. And I know what it feels like when I finish an exam and think maybe, just maybe, I understood enough to pass. And I know that sometimes when I'm wiping down this bar at 2 in the morning, I feel proud that I made it through another day without breaking. That's a low bar for happiness. Maybe. But it's my bar." Aurora smiled at the unintentional pun, and Ryan felt something warm spreading through his chest, something that had nothing to do with the beer and everything to do with the way she was looking at him. "Would you have dinner with me?" she asked suddenly. Ryan's hand froze halfway to his glass. "What?" "Dinner, food, conversation. Maybe somewhere nicer than this, no offense to your bar." "Are you asking me on a date?" "I'm asking if you'd like to spend more than scattered hours in a bar with me. What we call it is up to you." Every rational part of Ryan's brain said no. This was exactly the kind of complication he couldn't afford. Aurora lived in a different world, a world of real estate empires and high-end properties and the kind of money that made problems disappear. What could she possibly want with a bartender's single dad drowning in student loans? But another part of him, the part that had been so lonely for so long he'd stopped noticing, wanted desperately to say yes. "I can't," he said finally. Aurora's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or hurt. "Okay, it's not..." Ryan stopped, trying to find words that would make sense. "It's not that I don't want to, but I have Owen. And anything I start with someone, he gets attached to. And if it doesn't work out, he's the one who pays for it." "So you just don't date at all?" "Pretty much." "That seems like a lonely way to live." "It is, but it's safer than the alternative." Aurora finished her whiskey and stood up, and Ryan felt panic rising in his chest. The irrational fear that she was walking out of his life for good, and he was letting her. But she didn't leave. Instead, she leaned across the bar, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that made his head spin. "What if I promise that when it ends, and statistically it probably will end, I'd be honest with Owen about it? That I wouldn't just disappear, that I'd make sure he understood it wasn't his fault?" Ryan stared at her. "Why would you promise that?" "Because I think you're worth the risk, and I think I might be worth it too, if you gave me the chance to prove it. You don't even know me. I know you're honest. I know you're loyal. I know you're working yourself half to death for people you love. And I know that when you look at me, you see an actual person instead of a checkbook with legs." Aurora's voice softened. "That's more than most people see." Ryan's hands were shaking slightly. He gripped the edge of the bar to steady them. "I can't promise anything. I barely have time to sleep, let alone date." "Then don't promise anything. Just have dinner with me, once. And if it's terrible, we'll call it an interesting mistake and move on. And if it's not terrible, then we'll figure it out as we go." Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same exhaustion, the same loneliness, the same desperate hope that maybe this time things could be different. And he realized that saying no wouldn't protect Owen. It would just protect himself from the risk of wanting something he might not be able to keep. "One dinner," he said. Aurora's smile could have lit the entire city. "One dinner. But I picked the place, and we split the check. Deal." She wrote her number on a napkin, actual pen on paper instead of some digital exchange, and pressed it into his hand. Her fingers were warm against his palm. Thursday night? She asked. After your shift? Thursday I have class. Friday then. Friday I need to be home with Owen. Sunday morning? Brunch? Ryan thought about his schedule. Sunday mornings were usually spent doing laundry and grocery shopping while his mother watched Owen. But he could shift things around. He could make it work. Yeah, okay, Sunday morning. Aurora squeezed his hand once, then let go. I'll text you the address. Wait, I thought I was picking the place. You are. I'm just going to suggest a few options first. Ryan laughed despite himself. Bossy. Effective. She pulled on her coat and headed for the door, then turned back one last time. Thank you, Ryan. For what? For saying yes. Then she was gone again, leaving him standing behind the bar with a napkin in his hand and his heart beating faster than it had any right to. Ryan looked at the number she'd written, then carefully folded the napkin and tucked it into his pocket. He knew this was probably a mistake. Knew that women like Aurora didn't end up with men like him in any version of reality that made sense. But he'd said yes anyway. And as he finished closing up the bar that night, Ryan let himself imagine, just for a moment, what it might feel like to want something other than survival. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Ryan stared at his phone for the 14th time that hour. Aurora had texted him 3 restaurant options, each one more expensive than the last. He'd Googled them all during his break between criminal procedure and constitutional law, and the cheapest had entrees starting at $45. He typed out a response, deleted it, typed another one, deleted that too. Finally, he just wrote, "How about Maggie's on 5th? Best pancakes in the city and they don't require a second mortgage." Her reply came back almost instantly. Perfect. 10 a.m., Sunday? See you there. Ryan shoved his phone back in his pocket and tried to focus on the professor droning on about Fourth Amendment exceptions, but his mind kept drifting. What the hell was he doing? He had a paper due Monday, Owen's parent-teacher conference on Tuesday, and his mother had another doctor's appointment Wednesday that he couldn't miss. Adding a date, or whatever this was, into that mess seemed like the kind of decision people made right before their lives fell apart. But he'd said yes, and some stupid part of him was actually looking forward to it. The week crawled by in its usual chaos. Wednesday night, Ryan got home from his shift at the bar to find his mother sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by pill bottles and medical bills. Linda Mercer was 58, but looked older, her hair more gray than brown now, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to organize the paperwork. "Mom, you should be in bed," Ryan said, dropping his keys on the counter. "Couldn't sleep." She didn't look up from the bills. "Did you know they're charging us $300 for a consultation that lasted 8 minutes? I'll call them tomorrow." "You said that last week." "And I'll call them tomorrow," Ryan repeated, gentler this time. He moved behind her chair and started massaging her shoulders, feeling the knots of tension under his fingers. "You're not supposed to stress about this stuff. That's my job." Linda reached up and patted his hand. "You have enough jobs, sweetheart. One more won't kill me. That's what worries me." She turned in her chair to look at him, and Ryan saw the concern in her eyes, the same look she'd been giving him for years now. "When's the last time you did something for yourself?" Ryan thought about Aurora sitting in his bar, asking him almost the exact same question. "I'm fine, Mom." "That's not what I asked. I know what you asked, and I'm telling you I'm fine." Linda studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "You're a terrible liar." "Learned from the best." She swatted his arm weakly, but she was smiling. "Owen asked about you tonight, wanted to know when you'd be home to read to him." Guilt twisted in Ryan's chest. "I'll make it up to him this weekend." "You say that every week." "And I mean it every week." Linda gathered up the bills and pill bottles, moving slowly. Ryan wanted to help, but he knew she'd just wave him off. His mother had never been good at accepting help, even when she desperately needed it. He watched her shuffle down the hallway to her room, heard her door close softly. Then he pulled out his phone and looked at Aurora's last text. Sunday felt both impossibly far away and dangerously close. Saturday afternoon, Ryan was in the middle of writing his paper on prosecutorial discretion when Owen burst into his tiny bedroom/office, holding a toy dinosaur in each hand. "Dad! The T-Rex is fighting the Triceratops and I need you to be the referee!" Ryan glanced at his laptop screen. 1,500 words down, 1,000 to go. The paper was due in 36 hours, but Owen was looking at him with those huge brown eyes, the ones that looked exactly like his mother's, and Ryan felt his resolve crumbling. "All right," he said, saving his document, "but only if the Triceratops gets a fair trial before the T-Rex eats him." Owen's face scrunched up in confusion. "Dinosaurs don't have trials." "They do in this house. Come on." They spent the next hour on the living room floor, conducting an elaborate dinosaur court proceeding that somehow involved a jury of stuffed animals and multiple appeals. Owen took it very seriously, arguing passionately that the Triceratops had been provoked and therefore shouldn't be eaten. Ryan found himself actually having to think about the legal arguments, which was both ridiculous and strangely fun. "I think the Triceratops should go free," Owen announced finally. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that he's my favorite and I don't want him to get eaten." Ryan laughed. "That's not how the justice system works, buddy." "Then the justice system is stupid." "Sometimes I think you might be right about that." They were putting the dinosaurs away when Owen asked, "Dad, do you have to work tomorrow?" "In the morning I have something to do, but I'll be back by lunch and we can go to the park if you want." "What thing?" Ryan hesitated. He hadn't planned on telling Owen about Aurora, hadn't planned on telling anyone, really. But lying to his kid had never been an option. "I'm having breakfast with a friend." "What friend?" "Someone I met at work." Owen processed this with the serious concentration of a 7-year-old trying to understand adult behavior. "Is it a girlfriend or a girlfriend?" "Just a friend who happens to be a girl." "That's the same thing." "Not always." "Nana says you should date more." Ryan made a mental note to have a conversation with his mother about appropriate topics to discuss with impressionable children. "Nana says a lot of things." "She says you're lonely." The words hit harder than Ryan expected. He pulled Owen onto his lap, wrapping his arms around his son's small frame. "I'm not lonely. I have you and Nana. That's all I need." "But what about when I grow up and move away?" "You're 7. I've got at least 11 more years before I have to worry about that." Owen twisted around to look at him. "Promise you'll still be happy when I'm gone?" Ryan's throat tightened. "I promise. But you're not going anywhere for a long time, okay?" "Okay." Owen hugged him hard, then squirmed free and ran off to play with his dinosaurs again, the heavy conversation apparently forgotten. Ryan sat on the floor, watching his son and wondering how someone so small could ask questions that cut so deep. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that made Ravenport almost look beautiful. Ryan dropped Owen off with his mother, who gave him a knowing look that he pretended not to see, and headed to Maggie's diner on 5th Street. Aurora was already there when he arrived, sitting in a booth by the window. She'd dressed down again, jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked nervous, which somehow made Ryan feel better about his own nerves. "Hi," she said, as he slid into the seat across from her. "Hi." They stared at each other for a moment, and Ryan realized with a jolt that he had no idea how to do this. It had been 7 years since he'd been on anything resembling a date, and even back then he'd been terrible at it. A waitress appeared, Sally, who'd been working at Maggie's since before Ryan was born. She poured coffee without asking and set down 2 menus. "What'll it be, hun?" "Pancakes," Ryan said. "Blueberry. And bacon." Aurora looked at her menu, then at Ryan's confident expression, and smiled. "I'll have the same." Sally wrote it down and disappeared. Aurora wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, and Ryan noticed she wasn't wearing any rings. No jewelry at all, actually. He'd expected diamonds or something equally expensive. "You didn't have to dress down for me," he said. Aurora glanced down at herself. "I'm not dressed down. This is just me." The woman in the $1,000 coat was also you. That was the armor version. This is the Sunday morning version. She took a sip of coffee and made a face. "Okay, I take back what I said about best pancakes. If the coffee is any indication, the coffee's terrible, but the pancakes are worth it. Trust me. I'm trusting you with a lot lately." "Is that a problem?" Aurora shook her head slowly. "No, it's just new." Their food arrived faster than Ryan expected. Maggie's was efficient like that. Aurora stared at her plate like she wasn't sure what to do with it, and Ryan realized she probably didn't eat regular diner food very often. Maybe ever. "You okay?" he asked. I haven't had pancakes in probably 15 years. 15 years? I had a nutritionist tell me carbs were the enemy when I was in business school. I believed her. Ryan cut into his stack and took a deliberate bite, making a show of how good it was. Your nutritionist was wrong. Aurora laughed and picked up her fork. The first bite made her eyes widen. Oh my God! Told you. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Ryan felt himself relaxing in a way he hadn't expected. There was something easy about this, about sitting in a crappy diner eating pancakes with someone who didn't need him to be anything other than himself. So, Aurora said eventually, tell me about Owen. What's he like? Ryan could have talked about his son for hours, but he tried to keep it condensed. He's smart. Too smart sometimes. Asks questions that make me feel like I don't know anything. He's obsessed with dinosaurs right now, which means I've become an unwilling expert on the Cretaceous period. That sounds exhausting. It's the best kind of exhausting. Ryan paused, then added, he asked about you yesterday. Well, not you specifically, but he asked what I was doing this morning. What did you tell him? That I was meeting a friend. And? And he asked if you were a girlfriend. Then he told me his grandmother thinks I'm lonely. Aurora winced. Kids are brutal. They're honest. There's a difference. Ryan pushed his pancakes around his plate. He's the reason I almost said no when you asked me to dinner, or breakfast, whatever this is. I know. And if we keep doing this, whatever this is, he's going to notice eventually. He's going to get attached, and if it doesn't work out, he'll be hurt, Aurora finished. I know. You told me. I just need you to understand what you're signing up for. This isn't just about you and me. It's about a 7-year-old who's already lost one parent. His mother left? Ryan nodded. When he was 6 months old, said she wasn't ready to be a mom, signed over custody, and disappeared. I haven't heard from her in 7 years. Jesus, Ryan. It is what it is. He took another bite of pancakes, chewing slowly. Owen doesn't really remember her. Sometimes he asks questions, but mostly he just accepts that it's me and him and Nana. Aurora was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, my mother died when I was 12. Cancer. My father threw himself into work afterward and basically forgot I existed. So I know what it's like to lose a parent. And I know what it's like when the remaining parent is too broken to show up properly. I'm not broken. No. You're the opposite of broken. You're showing up so hard you're running yourself into the ground. She reached across the table and put her hand over his. I'm not asking you to be less careful with Owen. I'm asking you to let me prove I can be careful too. Ryan looked at their hands, hers smooth and elegant, his calloused and scarred from years of bar work. They didn't match at all, but somehow they fit together anyway. Okay, he said quietly. They finished their pancakes and argued about the check. Aurora tried to pay for both. Ryan insisted on splitting it. They compromised on Ryan leaving the tip. Outside the diner, they stood on the sidewalk in the spring sunshine, neither of them quite ready to leave. Can I see you again? Aurora asked. Yeah, but I need you to understand my schedule is insane. I can't do spontaneous. I can't do last minute. Everything has to be planned. I can work with planned. And some weeks I might not have time at all. I'll take whatever time you have. Ryan pulled out his phone and showed her his calendar, a color-coded nightmare of work shifts, classes, Owen's activities, and his mother's appointments. This is what you're dealing with. If you want to find time, you're going to have to fit into the gaps. Aurora studied the screen, and Ryan watched her face carefully, waiting for the moment when she'd realize this was too much work, too complicated, too exhausting. But instead, she just nodded. Okay, what about Tuesday? You've got a 2-hour gap between your shift and Owen's bedtime. That's not enough time for dinner. So we'll get coffee, or just walk around. I don't care what we do, Ryan. I just want to spend time with you. Something in Ryan's chest loosened. Tuesday works. They made plans, specific plans, with times and locations, and Ryan felt grateful that Aurora seemed to understand he needed structure, needed certainty, couldn't handle the kind of casual spontaneity that other people took for granted. When they finally said goodbye, Aurora leaned in and kissed his cheek. It was quick and light, barely there, but Ryan felt it like electricity. See you Tuesday, she said. Tuesday, he confirmed. He watched her walk to her car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than he'd make in 5 years, and drive away. Then he got into his beat-up Toyota and sat there for a minute, trying to process what he'd just agreed to. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "How did it go?" Ryan stared at the message, then typed back. "Good, really good." "I knew it would be. Bring her home sometime." Ryan laughed out loud in his empty car. His mother had never even met Aurora, but she was already planning family dinners. That was Linda Mercer for you. Always 3 steps ahead, always hopeful, even when hope was the hardest thing to hold on to. He drove home and spent the afternoon at the park with Owen, pushing him on the swings and pretending to be a dinosaur hunter. But part of his mind was already on Tuesday, counting down the hours until he'd see Aurora again. That night, after Owen was asleep and his mother had retreated to her room, Ryan sat at his tiny desk and tried to finish his paper. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he found himself thinking about Aurora's hand on his, about the way she'd looked at his impossible schedule and said she'd make it work. Nobody had ever said that before. Nobody had ever been willing to fit into the gaps. Tuesday came faster than expected. Ryan rushed through his shift at the bar, nearly spilled a beer on a regular, and got out 15 minutes early. He met Aurora at a coffee shop 2 blocks from Owen's school, strategic positioning so he could make the pickup on time. She was waiting inside, 2 cups already on the table. "I guessed you take it black." "Good guess." They sat down, and Ryan realized with a start that he was happy. Not the abstract concept of happiness he sometimes felt when Owen laughed or when he aced an exam. This was different. This was the immediate, visceral happiness of being exactly where he wanted to be. "Tell me about your day," Aurora said. So he did. He told her about the drunk who'd tried to pay his tab with lottery tickets, about the professor who'd extended their paper deadline by 2 days, about Owen's teacher calling to say he'd been disrupting class by correcting her facts about velociraptors. Aurora listened like every word mattered, like his chaotic, exhausting life was the most interesting thing she'd heard all week. When he finally stopped talking, she said, "Your turn to listen." She told him about a property deal that was falling apart because of zoning issues, about a business partner who was threatening to sue over creative differences, about the constant pressure of running a company where hundreds of people depended on her making the right decisions. "Sounds lonely," Ryan said. "It is. Everyone wants something from me, approval, money, connections. Nobody just wants to sit and drink bad coffee and talk." "This coffee isn't that bad." "Ryan, this coffee is terrible," he laughed. "Okay, yeah, it's pretty bad." They stayed until Ryan had to leave for Owen's school pickup. Aurora walked him to his car, and this time when they said goodbye, she hugged him. A real hug, the kind that lasted long enough to feel like it meant something. "Same time Thursday?" she asked. "Can't. Owen has a thing at school." "Friday? I work a double." Aurora pulled out her phone and looked at his shared calendar. He'd given her access after Sunday, a gesture that felt more intimate than it probably should have. "Saturday, 2 p.m., you've got 3 hours." "That works?" They fell into a pattern after that. Stolen hours in coffee shops and parks, quick lunches between his classes, late-night phone calls after Owen was asleep. Aurora learned his schedule better than he knew it himself, finding gaps he didn't know existed. And slowly, carefully, Ryan started to believe this might actually work. 3 weeks in, his mother cornered him in the kitchen. "So when do I get to meet her?" "Meet who?" Linda gave him a look that could have melted steel. "The woman who's got you smiling at your phone like a teenager." "I don't smile at my phone." "You do." Owen noticed too. "He thinks you're texting a superhero." Ryan groaned. "I'm not ready for you to meet her yet." "Why not?" "Because it's still new and fragile, and I don't want to jinx it." Linda touched his arm gently. "Sweetheart, you can't protect yourself from getting hurt by refusing to let yourself be happy." "I'm not refusing anything. I'm just being careful." There's a difference between careful and scared. Ryan wanted to argue, but he knew his mother was right. He was scared, terrified actually, because the more time he spent with Aurora, the more he wanted. And wanting things had never ended well for him. But he kept seeing her anyway, kept making time in his impossible schedule, kept falling a little bit more every time they were together. A month after their first breakfast, Aurora asked, "What are you doing this Sunday?" Same thing I do every Sunday. Laundry, groceries, trying to convince Owen that vegetables are food. Can I help? Ryan stopped walking. They were in the park near his apartment, taking advantage of a rare sunny afternoon. Help with what? All of it. Laundry, groceries, vegetable negotiations, whatever you need. That's not exactly a romantic date. I don't want a romantic date. I want to be part of your actual life, not just the gaps in your schedule. Ryan's first instinct was to say no. Letting Aurora into his Sunday routine meant letting her into Owen's world, meant risking his son getting attached to someone who might not stay. But he'd been seeing Aurora for a month now, and she'd shown up every single time. Never canceled, never complained about his limitations, never made him feel like he was too much work. Okay, he said, but I'm warning you. Sunday mornings are chaos. I can handle chaos. Sunday morning, Aurora showed up at Ryan's apartment building at 9 sharp. She was wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun, no makeup. She looked more beautiful than Ryan had ever seen her. He buzzed her up, his heart pounding. Owen was in his room playing with dinosaurs. Linda was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. The apartment was small and cluttered, and nothing like what Aurora was probably used to. When she knocked, Ryan took a deep breath and opened the door. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. Aurora stepped inside and looked around with genuine interest, not the polite curiosity of someone trying to hide their judgment. This is nice. It's small. It's home. Linda appeared from the kitchen, and Ryan made the introductions. His mother shook Aurora's hand with a warmth that made Ryan nervous. So you're the one making my son smile, Linda said. Aurora's cheeks flushed slightly. I'm trying. Well, you're doing a good job. Then Owen emerged from his room, clutching his favorite Triceratops. He stopped when he saw Aurora, suddenly shy. Owen, this is my friend Aurora, Ryan said. Aurora, this is Owen. Hi, Owen, Aurora said, crouching down to his level. Your dad told me you're an expert on dinosaurs. Owen's shyness evaporated. I know everything about dinosaurs. Everything? That's impressive. What's your favorite? Triceratops. Because they have 3 horns, and they could fight T-Rexes even though T-Rexes were bigger. That's my favorite too, Aurora said seriously. Underdogs who fight back are always the best. Owen studied her carefully, then held out his toy. Do you want to see my collection? Aurora glanced at Ryan, who nodded. I'd love to. She followed Owen to his room, and Ryan heard his son launching into an enthusiastic explanation of the differences between herbivores and carnivores. Linda came up beside him, smiling. I like her, she said quietly. You've known her for 3 minutes. 3 minutes is all I need. She looked at Owen like he mattered. That's all that counts. Ryan knew his mother was right, and that made everything more complicated and more hopeful at the same time. An hour later, they were all at the laundromat. Ryan hadn't expected Aurora to actually come, but she'd insisted. She helped Owen sort clothes by color while Ryan loaded washers. Linda sat on a bench reading her book, occasionally glancing up with a knowing smile that Ryan pretended not to see. Why do we separate the colors? Owen asked Aurora. Because if you wash red with white, everything turns pink. What's wrong with pink? Nothing. But sometimes you want your white shirts to stay white. Owen considered this seriously. Dad's shirts are all white. He doesn't have any red clothes. Your dad's wardrobe could use some color, Aurora said, loud enough for Ryan to hear. He looked up from the washer. My wardrobe is practical. Practical is boring. Boring is affordable. Aurora threw a sock at him, and Owen laughed, a real unself-conscious laugh that made Ryan's chest ache with how much he loved this moment. After the laundromat, they went grocery shopping. Aurora pushed the cart while Owen rode in it, pointing out items they needed. Ryan tried to stick to his budget, but Aurora kept sneaking extra things in when she thought he wasn't looking. I saw that, he said, when she added a container of strawberries. Owen should have fresh fruit. Owen has apples. Apples are boring. Kids need variety. Kids need what their parents can afford. Aurora stopped the cart and looked at him directly. Ryan, I'm not trying to overstep. But if I want to buy your son strawberries, can you just let me buy him strawberries? Owen was watching them both with wide eyes. Ryan realized they were having their first real disagreement in front of his kid, and he needed to handle it carefully. "Okay," he said quietly. "Strawberries are fine. Thank you." Aurora nodded, and they kept shopping. But Ryan felt the tension hanging between them, unresolved. Back at the apartment, while Linda and Owen were putting groceries away, Ryan pulled Aurora aside. "I'm sorry about earlier." "You don't need to apologize." "Yeah, I do. You were trying to be nice, and I made it weird." Aurora sighed. "I know you're protective of your independence, and I respect that. But I need you to understand that when I do things for Owen, it's not charity. It's because I care about him. About both of you." "I know, I'm not used to accepting help." "I noticed." She smiled slightly. "We can work on that." They ordered pizza for lunch, and Owen insisted Aurora sit next to him at their small kitchen table. He told her about his school day, about his best friend Marcus who could burp the alphabet, about the girl in his class who said dinosaurs were stupid. "Dinosaurs aren't stupid," Aurora said firmly. "That girl clearly doesn't know what she's talking about." Owen beamed at her, and Ryan watched the two of them with a strange mix of joy and terror. His son was getting attached, and so was he. After lunch, Aurora helped Owen with a school project about habitats while Ryan and Linda cleaned up. His mother cornered him at the sink. "She's good with him," Linda said quietly. "I know." "You're falling for her." "I know that too." "And you're scared." Ryan scrubbed a plate harder than necessary. "Wouldn't you be?" "Of course. But being scared isn't a good enough reason to push away something real." Ryan looked through the kitchen doorway at Aurora and Owen, sitting on the floor surrounded by construction paper and markers. Aurora was laughing at something Owen said. Her whole face lit up in a way he'd never seen before. "What if she leaves?" he asked his mother. "What if she doesn't?" That question stayed with Ryan long after Aurora left that evening, after Owen had hugged her goodbye and asked when she was coming back, after Linda had gone to bed with another knowing smile. Ryan lay awake that night, staring at his ceiling and trying to figure out when exactly he'd stopped being careful and started being reckless. Because that's what this was. Reckless and dangerous and completely illogical. But he couldn't seem to stop himself. His phone buzzed, a text from Aurora. "Thank you for today. Owen is wonderful. You're wonderful. I know this is complicated, but I want you to know I'm not going anywhere." Ryan read the message 3 times, then typed back, "I'm not going anywhere either, even though part of me thinks I should be running." "Don't run. I'm worth the risk. We're worth the risk." Ryan set his phone down and closed his eyes. She was right. They were worth the risk. He just hoped they were both strong enough to handle it if everything fell apart. 2 weeks later, Ryan was in the middle of his evidence final when his phone started buzzing in his pocket. He ignored it. Phones were supposed to be off during exams, and he'd silenced his but kept it on him just in case. It buzzed again. And again. His professor looked up from her desk and Ryan mouthed an apology. But his hands were shaking as he pulled out the phone under his desk. 7 missed calls from his mother's number. 3 text messages, each one more frantic than the last. The most recent one just said, "Hospital, now." Ryan stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Everyone turned to look at him. "I have to go," he said to the professor. "Family emergency." She started to protest, but something in his expression must have stopped her. "Go. We'll figure out the exam later." Ryan grabbed his bag and ran. His car was parked 3 blocks away, and he sprinted the whole distance, his lungs burning. He tried calling his mother back, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried the hospital, got transferred twice, and finally reached someone who told him Linda Mercer had been admitted 20 minutes ago. "What happened?" Ryan demanded. "I can't give information over the phone, sir. You'll need to come in." Ryan hung up and drove faster than he should have, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. His mother had been doing better lately, or so he'd thought. Maybe she'd been hiding how bad things really were. Maybe he'd been too distracted with Aurora to notice. He made it to Ravenport General in 15 minutes and ran straight to the emergency department. The nurse at the desk recognized him. He'd been here enough times over the past few years. "Linda Mercer," he said, breathless. "My mother. Where is she?" "Room 7, but you should know—" Ryan didn't wait to hear the rest. He pushed through the double doors and found room 7. His mother was in his bed, an oxygen mask over her face, an IV in her arm. She looked small and fragile in a way that made Ryan's stomach turn. "Mom," he said, moving to her side. Linda pulled the oxygen mask down. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Don't panic." "Don't panic. You're in the emergency room. It was just a dizzy spell. I fell, that's all." A doctor appeared in the doorway, Dr. Patel, who'd been managing his mother's care for the last year. "Mr. Mercer, can I speak with you outside?" Ryan looked at his mother, who nodded weakly. He followed Dr. Patel into the hallway, his heart hammering. "Your mother's condition is progressing," Dr. Patel said without preamble. "The medication we've been using isn't as effective as we'd hoped. We need to discuss more aggressive treatment options." "What kind of options?" "There's a new clinical trial starting next month. It's shown promise in cases like your mother's, but it's intensive. She'd need to come in 3 times a week for treatments, and there are side effects." Ryan leaned against the wall, trying to process. "What happens if we don't do the trial?" Dr. Patel's expression was sympathetic but honest. "Then we continue managing symptoms and make her as comfortable as possible. But Ryan, you need to understand, we're looking at months, not years." The words hit like a physical blow. Ryan had known his mother was sick, had known it was serious, but hearing someone put a timeline on it made it real in a way nothing else had. "How long do I have to decide?" "The trial starts accepting patients in 2 weeks. I need your mother's consent by then." Ryan nodded numbly. "Okay, I'll talk to her. There's one more thing. She's going to need more help at home. The falls are getting more frequent. She shouldn't be alone during the day." "I can't. I work. And I have school. And Owen..." "I understand. But you're going to have to figure something out, or consider a care facility." "She's not going to a facility." Dr. Patel put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Then you need help. Home health aide, family member, someone. Because if she falls again and you're not there, next time might be worse." Ryan went back into the room feeling like he was moving through water. His mother was dozing, the oxygen mask back in place. He sat in the chair beside her bed and put his head in his hands. He had no idea how he was going to make this work. His schedule was already impossible. Adding 3 days a week of medical treatments and arranging full-time care was beyond his capacity. But what choice did he have? His phone buzzed, a text from Aurora. "How did your exam go?" Ryan stared at the message. The exam felt like it had happened in another lifetime. He typed back with shaking hands. "At the hospital, Mom collapsed." The response came immediately. "Which hospital? I'm coming." "You don't have to..." "Which hospital, Ryan?" he told her. Then he sat there in the fluorescent-lit room, listening to the beep of monitors and trying to figure out how his life had become so completely unmanageable. Aurora arrived 30 minutes later, still in a business suit like she'd left a meeting to come here. She found him in the hallway outside his mother's room, and without saying anything, she just pulled him into a hug. Ryan let himself lean into her for a moment, breathing in her perfume and trying not to fall apart completely. "What happened?" Aurora asked quietly. He told her everything: the fall, Dr. Patel's prognosis, the clinical trial, the need for constant care. Aurora listened without interrupting, her hand rubbing circles on his back. "What do you need?" she asked when he finished. "I need to clone myself, or find 30 hours in a day, or win the lottery so I can quit my job and be home with her." "What if I helped?" Ryan pulled back to look at her. "You can't fix this, Aurora." "I'm not trying to fix it. I'm offering to help carry it." "You don't know what you're signing up for." "Then tell me. Explain it to me so I understand." Ryan ran his hands through his hair, exhausted. "I need someone to be with my mom during the day while I'm at work and school. I need someone to take her to treatments 3 times a week. I need to figure out how to pay for all of this because insurance only covers part of it. And I need to somehow keep Owen's life normal through all of this so he doesn't grow up remembering his childhood as one long medical crisis." Aurora was quiet for a moment, and Ryan could see her thinking, "What if I hired a home health aide?" "I can't let you do that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because I can't pay you back. Because you're too proud to accept help even when you desperately need it?" Aurora's voice was gentle but firm. "Ryan, I have more money than I know what to do with. Let me use it for something that actually matters. It's not about pride. It's about not wanting to owe you." You wouldn't owe me. This isn't a transaction. This is me caring about you and your family. Ryan wanted to argue, but he was too tired, and the truth was he needed help. He couldn't do this alone. I don't know how to say yes to this. Start with the words, okay, thank you. He managed a weak smile. Okay, thank you. Good. Now what about Owen? Where is he? At school. I need to pick him up in an hour. I'll get him? Aurora, you stay here with your mom. I'll pick up Owen, take him for dinner, and bring him back here to see his grandmother. Unless you think that's a bad idea? Ryan thought about Owen's face the last time Linda had been in the hospital. His son had been scared but trying to be brave, asking quiet questions about whether Nana was going to die. Ryan had lied and said no, she'd be fine. But kids weren't stupid. Owen knew. He'd want to see her, Ryan said. But don't tell him how serious it is. Not yet. I won't, I promise. Aurora left to get Owen, and Ryan went back into his mother's room. Linda was awake now, the oxygen mask off, looking more alert. Was that Aurora? She asked. Yeah. She came. Yeah, she did. Linda smiled slightly. I like her even more now. Mom, we need to talk about the clinical trial. I already told Dr. Patel yes. You did? While you were in the hallway having your crisis. Ryan, I'm not giving up. Not yet. If there's a chance this treatment might give me more time with you and Owen, I'm taking it. Relief flooded through him. Okay, good. But I heard what Dr. Patel said about needing help at home, and I know you can't do it alone. Aurora offered to hire someone. Linda studied him carefully. And you're going to let her? I don't have much choice. There's always a choice. The question is whether you're brave enough to make the right one. Ryan sat down in the chair again. I don't want her to think I'm using her for her money. Do you really think that's what she thinks? I don't know what she thinks. We've been together 2 months. That's not long enough to be asking for this kind of help. Love doesn't work on a timeline, sweetheart. I never said anything about love. Linda laughed, which turned into a cough. When she caught her breath, she said, You don't have to say it. It's written all over your face every time you look at her. Ryan didn't know how to respond to that. Yes, he cared about Aurora, more than he'd planned to. More than was probably smart. But love was a big word, and big words scared him. Just let her help, Linda said. And stop punishing yourself for needing someone. An hour later, Aurora returned with Owen. His son ran into the room and climbed carefully onto the bed, hugging Linda with the fierce intensity of a 7-year-old who understood more than he should. Nana, are you okay? Owen asked. I'm okay, baby. Just a little tired. Aurora said you fell. Did you break anything? No breaks, just some bruises. Owen inspected his grandmother critically, then seemed satisfied. Aurora bought me a cheeseburger and fries and a milkshake. Did she now? Linda looked at Aurora with amusement. Aurora shrugged. He said he was hungry. I'm always hungry, Owen announced. He turned to Ryan. Dad, can Aurora come home with us when Nana gets out of the hospital? Owen, please, she knows all the good dinosaur facts. And she's funny. And she bought me a milkshake. Ryan looked at Aurora helplessly. She was trying not to smile. We'll see, buddy, Ryan said. Right now we need to let Nana rest. They stayed for another hour, Owen telling Linda elaborate stories about school, while Aurora and Ryan sat quietly on the other side of the room. At one point, Aurora reached over and took Ryan's hand, threading her fingers through his. He held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. Dr. Patel came back with discharge papers and instructions. Linda would be released tonight, but needed to follow up in 2 days. The clinical trial paperwork would be ready by the end of the week, and they needed to have a home health aide in place before the treatment started. Ryan felt the weight of it all pressing down on him, but Aurora squeezed his hand, and he remembered he didn't have to carry it alone anymore. They got Linda home around 8. Aurora helped her get settled while Ryan put Owen to bed. His son was unusually quiet, clutching his triceratops. Is Nana going to die? Owen asked suddenly. Ryan sat down on the edge of the bed. He'd been dreading this question. Everyone dies eventually, bud. But is she going to die soon? Ryan wanted to lie, wanted to promise that everything would be fine, but he'd never lied to Owen about the important things, and he wasn't going to start now. She's sick, he said carefully, and the doctors are trying to help her. But sometimes even with help, people don't get better. Owen's eyes filled with tears. I don't want her to die. I know. I don't either. Will you die too? Not for a long, long time. You're stuck with me. Owen thought about this, then asked, what about Aurora? Will she die? Not for a long, long time either. Good, because I like her. She's nice, and she makes you smile. Ryan pulled his son into a hug, feeling his small body shake with suppressed tears. It's okay to be scared, Owen. I'm scared too. You are? Yeah, but being scared doesn't mean we give up. It just means we love people enough to be scared of losing them. Owen hugged him tighter. I love you, Dad. I love you too, buddy. So much. After Owen finally fell asleep, Ryan found Aurora in the kitchen, cleaning up the dinner dishes his mother hadn't gotten to that morning. She looked exhausted, still in her business suit, her hair falling out of its neat style. You don't have to do that, Ryan said. I know, but your mom shouldn't have to wake up to dirty dishes. Ryan leaned against the counter, watching her. Why are you doing all this? Aurora turned to face him. Because I care about you, and about Linda, and about Owen. Is that so hard to believe? A little bit, yeah. Most people would have run by now. I'm not most people. I'm starting to figure that out. Aurora dried her hands and crossed the kitchen to stand in front of him. Ryan, I need you to understand something. I'm not here because I feel sorry for you. I'm not here because I think you need saving. I'm here because when I'm with you, I feel like myself for the first time in years. Like I'm allowed to be something other than the woman who builds empires and makes money. What do you want to be? Just Aurora, the person who buys your kid milkshakes and does your dishes and sits in hospital waiting rooms because that's what you do for people you... She stopped, seeming to catch herself. Ryan's heart was pounding. People you what? Aurora took a breath. People you love. The word hung between them, huge and terrifying and absolutely true. Ryan knew he should say something back, but his throat had closed up. Aurora laughed shakily. I know it's too soon. I know we've only been together 2 months, but I can't keep pretending this is casual or temporary, because it's not. Not for me. Ryan found his voice. It's not casual for me either. But I'm terrified. Because everyone I've ever loved has either left or is dying, and I don't know if I can survive adding you to that list. So what are you saying? You want to end this? No. The word came out more forcefully than he intended. No. I'm saying I don't know how to do this. How to let you in when everything feels like it's falling apart. Aurora reached up and cupped his face in her hands. You don't have to know how. You just have to let me stay. Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of her palms against his skin. I want you to stay. Then let me. Let me hire the health aide. Let me help with Owen when you need it. Let me be part of this messy, complicated, beautiful life you've built. Why would you want that? You could have anyone, someone without all this baggage. I don't want anyone. I want you, baggage and all. Ryan opened his eyes and looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the truth written across her face. She meant it. Every word. I love you, he said. The words felt strange in his mouth, rusty from disuse. I didn't plan to. I tried not to. But I do. Aurora's smile was like sunrise. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Ryan wrapped his arms around her and held on, letting himself believe just for this moment that maybe things could actually work out. When they finally pulled apart, Aurora rested her forehead against his. We're going to get through this, all of it. You sound pretty sure about that. I am, because I don't give up on things that matter, and you matter, Ryan Mercer. You and Owen and Linda. You all matter. Ryan wanted to argue that her confidence was misplaced, that life had a way of destroying even the best intentions. But he was too tired to fight anymore. So instead, he just held her and let himself hope. The next morning, Aurora showed up at 7 with coffee and a folder full of information about home health aides. She'd already made calls, already set up interviews for the afternoon. You work fast, Ryan said, taking the coffee gratefully. I work efficiently. There's a difference. They spent the morning interviewing candidates while Linda rested and Owen was at school. The third woman they met, Diane, a 50-something nurse with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, seemed perfect. "I've been doing home care for 20 years, Diane said. "I don't do drama. I don't do games. I show up on time, I do my job, and I treat my patients like human beings. That work for you?" Linda, who'd insisted on being part of the interview process, laughed. "I like her." "When can you start?" Aurora asked. "Tomorrow, if you need me." They worked out the schedule. Diane would be there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, helping Linda with daily activities and making sure she took her medications. She'd also drive Linda to the clinical trial treatments when they started. After Diane left, Ryan tried to ask Aurora how much it would cost, but she waved him off. "Don't worry about it." "I have to worry about it. I can't just let you pay for everything." "You're not letting me. I'm choosing to. There's a difference." "Aurora." "Ryan, I have more money than I will ever need. My annual bonus alone could probably pay for Diane's services for 5 years. Please let me do this without making it a fight." Linda spoke up from her spot on the couch. "She's right, sweetheart. Sometimes you have to let people help you." Ryan felt outnumbered. "Fine, but I'm paying you back somehow." Aurora smiled. "I'll add it to your tab." Over the next week, a new routine emerged. Diane showed up every morning at 8, cheerful and competent. Linda seemed to like her, which was half the battle. Aurora came by most evenings, helping with dinner or playing with Owen or just sitting with Ryan while he studied. The clinical trial started on Tuesday. Ryan took off work to go with his mother to the first treatment, sitting in the cold hospital room while she was hooked up to an IV that dripped experimental drugs into her system. Linda was brave through the whole thing, cracking jokes with the nurses and pretending she felt fine. But afterward, in the car, she admitted, "That was awful." "Do you want to stop?" "No, I want more time with my grandson, so I'll do awful if that's what it takes." Ryan reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're the toughest person I know. I learned from you." "Pretty sure it's the other way around." Linda smiled. "We learned from each other." The second treatment was worse. Linda threw up 3 times on the way home. Diane met them at the apartment and helped get her settled, but Ryan could see his mother was suffering. The third treatment left her so weak she could barely walk. "This is killing her," Ryan told Aurora that night. They were sitting on his apartment building's roof, a flat, crumbling space that Owen wasn't allowed on, but that Ryan sometimes used when he needed to breathe. What if the treatment is worse than the disease? Then she'll stop, but that's her choice to make, not yours. "I hate watching her hurt." "I know." Aurora moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "But you're not watching alone anymore." Ryan wrapped his arm around her, grateful for the warmth. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Good thing you don't have to find out." They sat there in silence, watching the lights of Ravenport spread out below them. The city looked almost beautiful from up here, the ugliness hidden by distance and darkness. "Can I ask you something?" Aurora said after a while. "Sure." "When Owen asked if I was going to die, what did you tell him?" Ryan thought back to that conversation. "I told him not for a long, long time. Was that okay?" "It was perfect, because I'm planning on being around for a long, long time. If you'll let me." Ryan turned to look at her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm all in, Ryan, completely. I know it's fast, and I know your life is complicated, and I know there are no guarantees, but I want this. Us. All of it." Ryan felt something shifting in his chest, the careful walls he'd built starting to crumble. "I'm all in too, even though it terrifies me." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere, even when things get hard." "Things are already hard." Aurora smiled. "Then it's a good thing I like a challenge." They kissed on the roof while the city hummed below them, and Ryan let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he'd found someone who could handle the weight of his life without breaking under it. The next crisis came 3 days later. Ryan was at the bar Thursday night, midway through his shift, when Diane called. Her voice had an edge to it that made his stomach drop before she even started talking. "Ryan, I need you to come home. Now." "What happened? Is it my mom?" "Just come home. I've got Owen with a neighbor, but Linda's asking for you." Ryan told his boss he had to leave, didn't wait for permission, just grabbed his keys and ran. He made it home in 12 minutes, took the stairs 2 at a time, and burst through the apartment door to find Diane sitting with his mother on the couch. Linda's face was gray, her breathing shallow. "What the hell happened?" Ryan demanded. Diane stood up, her expression grim. "She collapsed about an hour ago. Came to after a few minutes, but her pulse is irregular. I wanted to call an ambulance, but she refused." Ryan turned to his mother. "Mom, if you need to go to the hospital." "I'm not going back there," Linda said, her voice weak but determined. "I just got home from treatment this morning. I'm not spending another night in that place." "You collapsed?" "I got dizzy and fell. It happens. It's happening more often." Linda closed her eyes, and Ryan saw how exhausted she was. The clinical trial was taking everything from her. "I just need rest, that's all." Ryan looked at Diane, who shook her head slightly, not agreeing but acknowledging this was Linda's call to make. He wanted to fight, wanted to force his mother to get help, but he also knew her well enough to recognize when she'd made up her mind. "Fine," he said, "but if it happens again, I'm calling the ambulance myself." "Deal." Diane helped Linda to her bedroom while Ryan called the neighbor to check on Owen. Mrs. Patterson assured him Owen was fine, playing with her grandson, and could stay as long as needed. Ryan thanked her and then called Aurora, hands shaking as he dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Hey, I was just thinking about you. Can you come over? I just need you here." "I'm on my way." Aurora arrived 20 minutes later with takeout food that Ryan hadn't asked for but desperately needed. She found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. "Diane filled me in," she said, setting the food down. "How's Linda doing now?" "Sleeping? But Aurora, I don't know how much more of this she can take. The treatment is supposed to help, but it's destroying her." "Have you talked to Dr. Patel?" 3 times this week. He keeps saying the side effects are normal, that we have to give it time to work. But what if time is the one thing she doesn't have?" Aurora sat down across from him, reaching for his hands. "What does Linda say?" "That she wants to keep going. That she'd rather die fighting than give up." Ryan's voice cracked. "And I have to support that choice even though it's killing me to watch. You're doing everything you can. It doesn't feel like enough." They sat in silence for a while, Aurora's thumbs tracing circles on his palms. Finally, she said, "When's the last time you ate?" "I don't remember." "Then eat. You can't take care of anyone if you fall apart." Ryan forced himself to eat the pasta she'd brought, tasting nothing. Aurora didn't push him to talk, just sat there being present. After a while, Diane emerged from Linda's room. "She's resting comfortably," Diane reported. "I'm going to stay the night, keep an eye on her vitals. Ryan, you should get Owen and try to maintain some normalcy for him." Ryan nodded, grateful for Diane's competence. "Thank you. For everything. That's what I'm here for." Aurora drove him to pick up Owen, who came running out of Mrs. Patterson's apartment with a chocolate smudge on his face and too much energy for 9 at night. "Dad, Mrs. Patterson has a puppy. Can we get a puppy, please?" Ryan looked at Aurora helplessly. She was trying not to laugh. "We'll talk about it later, bud. Right now we need to get you ready for bed." "But I'm not tired." "You're never tired. That's the problem." Back at the apartment, Owen ran straight to Linda's room. Diane intercepted him gently. "Your Nana's sleeping, sweetheart. You can see her in the morning." "Is she okay?" "She's tired from her treatment, but she'll be better tomorrow." Owen looked skeptical, but allowed himself to be redirected to his bedroom. Ryan followed, going through the familiar bedtime routine on autopilot. Teeth brushed, pajamas on, Triceratops tucked in beside him. "Dad?" Owen said as Ryan was turning off the light. "Yeah, buddy." "Is Nana going to be okay? For real?" Ryan sat down on the edge of the bed, trying to figure out how to be honest without being cruel. "The doctors are doing everything they can to help her. But sometimes even when people try their hardest, things don't work out the way we want. That's not fair." "No, it's not." Owen was quiet for a moment, then asked, "If Nana dies, will we be okay? Just me and you?" Ryan felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, we'll be okay. We've always been okay, haven't we?" "What about Aurora? Will she still be around?" "I think so. If you want her to be." "I want her to be. She's nice, and she doesn't treat me like a baby." Ryan smiled despite everything. "She is pretty great, isn't she?" "Yeah." Owen yawned. "Dad, I'm scared." "Me too, bud. Me too." He stayed until Owen fell asleep, then found Aurora in the kitchen making tea. She handed him a mug without asking if he wanted it. "He's worried," Ryan said. "Of course he is. He's smart enough to know when something's wrong. I hate that he has to go through this. He's 7. He should be worried about homework and dinosaurs, not whether his grandmother is going to die. You can't protect him from reality, Ryan. You can only help him handle it." "I know. Doesn't make it easier." They drank their tea in silence. Diane emerged from Linda's room again around 11, looking satisfied. "Her vitals have stabilized. I think she's through the worst of it for tonight." "Thank you for staying," Aurora said. "Of course." Diane gathered her things. "Ryan, I'll be back at 8 tomorrow. Try to get some sleep." After she left, Aurora turned to Ryan. "Come on, you need rest too." "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her collapsing." "Then don't sleep. Just lie down. I'll stay with you." They ended up on Ryan's bed, fully clothed, Aurora's arms around him while he stared at the ceiling. He'd never felt more helpless in his life. All the work he'd done, all the sacrifices he'd made, and he still couldn't protect the people he loved from getting hurt. "I'm glad you're here," he said quietly. "Where else would I be?" "I don't know. Somewhere that doesn't involve emergency calls and sick mothers and terrified kids." Aurora propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "You really don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "That this is exactly where I want to be. Not because it's easy or fun or romantic, but because it's real, because you're real. And I've spent my whole adult life surrounded by fake people doing fake things for fake reasons. Being here with you, even when everything is falling apart, this is the most honest I've felt in years." Ryan turned to face her. "You're either crazy or a saint." "I'm neither. I'm just someone who found something worth holding on to." She kissed him softly. "And I'm not letting go." Ryan pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair. "I love you. I love you too. Now close your eyes. I'll be right here." He didn't think he'd sleep, but exhaustion won out. When he woke up 6 hours later, Aurora was still there, her arm draped across his chest, her breathing steady and calm. For just a moment, before reality crashed back in, he let himself appreciate how right it felt to wake up next to her. Then he remembered why she was there, and the weight settled back onto his shoulders. The next few weeks established a new, harder rhythm. Linda continued with the clinical trial, despite the brutal side effects. Diane became a permanent fixture in their lives, managing Linda's care with quiet efficiency. Aurora showed up whenever Ryan needed her, which was increasingly often, but the cracks were starting to show. Ryan was failing 2 of his classes because he couldn't focus on anything except his mother's health. His boss at the bar was getting frustrated with his constant need to leave early or skip shifts, and Owen was acting out at school, his teacher calling to report that he'd gotten into a fight with another kid over something trivial. "I don't know what to do," Ryan admitted to Aurora one night. They were sitting in his car outside the bar after his shift, too tired to drive home yet. "Everything's falling apart, and I can't fix any of it." "You're trying to fix everything alone. That's the problem." "What else am I supposed to do?" "Let me help more. Let me take some of the weight. You're already doing so much." "I could do more. I could—" Aurora hesitated. "I could move in, help with Owen and Linda, be there when you can't be." Ryan turned to stare at her. "Move in? Aurora, we've been together 4 months. I know how long it's been, and I know it's fast, but we're already basically living together anyway. I'm at your place almost every night. My stuff is scattered all over your bathroom. Owen asks where I am when I'm not there. That's different from officially moving in." "How?" Ryan struggled to articulate the fear clawing at his chest. "Because if you move in, it becomes real, official. And when real official things end, they hurt worse." Aurora's expression shifted, hurt flickering across her features. "When they end? Not if. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? You're already planning for me to leave, already protecting yourself from getting too attached." "I'm not—" Ryan stopped, because she was right. He was protecting himself. Had been from the start. "I'm scared, okay? I'm terrified that you're going to wake up one day and realize this is too much work, that I'm too much work. How many times do I have to prove I'm not going anywhere before you believe me?" "I don't know. I don't know what proof would even look like." Aurora looked away, blinking back tears. I'm doing everything I can think of. I'm showing up. I'm helping. I'm loving you and Owen and Linda with everything I have. What else do you need from me? I don't know, Ryan said honestly, and that's the problem. They sat in tense silence. Finally, Aurora said, I'm not going to push you on moving in, but Ryan, you need to decide if you're actually in this relationship or if you're just waiting for me to prove you right about people leaving. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. She opened the car door. I love you, but I can't keep fighting to prove that if you're not willing to believe it. She got out and walked to her own car, leaving Ryan sitting alone in the darkness. He wanted to go after her, wanted to apologize and tell her he'd try harder to trust. But he was frozen, paralyzed by the certainty that if he let himself believe completely, the eventual loss would destroy him. He drove home and found Owen still awake despite it being past 10. His son was sitting at the kitchen table with Diane, who looked apologetic. He wouldn't settle, Diane explained. Kept asking for you. Ryan sat down next to Owen. What's wrong, bud? Where's Aurora? She went home. Why? Did you have a fight? Ryan was startled. What makes you think that? Because you look sad, and you only look like that when something's wrong. Owen's eyes filled with tears. Is she leaving, like Mom did? The question hit like a punch to the gut. No, buddy, Aurora's not leaving. But you're scared she will, I can tell. Ryan had no idea when his 7-year-old had become so perceptive. Yeah, I'm a little scared of that. But she promised she wouldn't. She told me. When did she tell you that? Last week. I asked her if she was going to leave like my mom did, and she said no. She said she loves us, and love means staying even when things are hard. Owen wiped his eyes. Don't you believe her? Ryan looked at his son, this small, brave person who'd already lost one parent and was terrified of losing another person he'd grown to love. And he realized his fear wasn't protecting Owen. It was hurting him. Yeah, Ryan said. I believe her. Then why did she leave tonight? Because I was being stupid, but I'm going to fix it. He got Owen to bed, thanked Diane, and then sat down to text Aurora. He typed and deleted half a dozen messages before finally settling on, I'm sorry, can we talk tomorrow? Her response came 5 minutes later. Okay? The next morning, Ryan dropped Owen at school and drove to Aurora's place, a penthouse apartment downtown that he'd only been to twice. She let him in wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun. No makeup. She looked vulnerable in a way he'd never seen before. Hi, she said. Hi, can I come in? She stepped aside and Ryan entered the apartment. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, art on the walls that probably cost more than his car. But it also felt sterile. There were no photos, no personal touches, nothing that screamed Aurora lived here. This place doesn't look like you, he said. That's because I'm never here. I spend all my time at your apartment. Ryan turned to face her. Owen asked me last night if you were leaving like his mother did. Aurora's expression crumpled. Ryan, and I realize that my fear of you leaving isn't protecting him. It's teaching him not to trust people who love him. It's teaching him that everyone leaves eventually, so why bother getting attached? What are you saying? Ryan took a breath. I'm saying you were right. I've been planning for you to leave instead of believing you'd stay. And that's not fair to you, or to me, or to Owen. So what do you want? I want you to move in, for real. Not because it makes logistics easier, but because I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want Owen to have you there when he's scared or sad or just wants to talk about dinosaurs. I want my mom to have you around for however much time she has left. I want all of it. Aurora's eyes were shining with tears. Are you sure? I'm terrified. But yeah, I'm sure. She closed the distance between them and kissed him hard. Ryan wrapped his arms around her and held on, feeling something shift inside him. Trust didn't come with guarantees, but maybe that was the point. Maybe love only meant something if you chose it anyway. I'll start packing today, Aurora said against his lips. You don't have to rush. Ryan, I've been ready to move in since about 2 weeks after we started dating. The only thing stopping me was waiting for you to be ready too. They spent the morning packing boxes while Aurora made calls to cancel her lease and arrange for movers. Ryan kept expecting to feel panicked, but instead, he just felt relieved, like he'd been holding his breath for months and could finally exhale. His phone rang around noon, Linda's name on the screen. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" "Sweetheart, I'm at the hospital. I need you to come." Ryan's blood went cold. "What happened? Where's Diane?" "She's here with me. It's not an emergency." "Well, it is, but just come. Dr. Patel wants to talk to us." Ryan drove to the hospital with Aurora following in her own car. They found Linda in an examination room, Diane standing beside her. His mother looked small and tired, but not actively dying, which Ryan took as a good sign. Dr. Patel came in a few minutes later with a file folder. "Mr. Mercer, Ms. Vale, thank you for coming." "What's going on?" Ryan demanded. "We ran labs after Linda's collapse last week. The results just came back." Dr. Patel opened the folder. "The clinical trial is working." Ryan blinked. "What?" "Her numbers have improved significantly. Not a cure, not yet, but measurable progress. The treatment is doing what we hoped it would do." Linda was crying, which made Ryan start crying, which made Aurora tear up, and suddenly everyone in the room was emotional except Dr. Patel, who looked pleased with himself. "So she's going to be okay?" Ryan asked. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're talking about more time, not forever, but yes, if this trend continues, we could be looking at years instead of months." Years. The word sounded impossible, beautiful, terrifying in its hopefulness. "What happens now?" Aurora asked, her hand finding Ryan's. "We continue with the treatment, monitor her progress, adjust as needed. The side effects may lessen as her body adapts." Dr. Patel looked at Linda. "You did good. Sticking with it even when it was hard. That's what made the difference." After the doctor left, Ryan sat down next to his mother and put his head on her shoulder like he used to do when he was a kid. "You scared the hell out of me," he said. "I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just keep fighting. Keep being stubborn and difficult and refusing to give up." Linda laughed weakly. "I can do that." They drove home together, Ryan and Aurora following Diane's car. Owen was at school, and for once, Ryan had a few hours where nothing was actively on fire. They sat in the apartment living room processing the good news. "Years," Ryan said, testing the word out loud. "She might have years." "That's amazing." "I don't know what to do with hope. I've been bracing for loss for so long that I forgot what it felt like to expect good things." Aurora moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "You get to remember now. We both do." That evening, they told Owen together. His son listened seriously, then asked, "So Nana's not going to die?" "She's still sick," Ryan explained, "but the medicine is helping. She's going to be around for a while longer." Owen processed this, then asked, "How much longer?" "We don't know exactly. Maybe years." "Years is good. Years is long enough for her to see me grow up, right?" Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, bud, long enough for that." Owen seemed satisfied. Then he turned to Aurora. "Are you moving in? For real this time?" Aurora glanced at Ryan, who nodded. "Yeah, for real. Is that okay with you?" "Yes!" Owen jumped up and hugged her fiercely. "Can you bring your TV? Ours is really small." Aurora laughed. "I'll bring my TV." Over the next week, Aurora's belongings slowly migrated to the apartment. It was a strange reverse process. Instead of accumulating more space, she was condensing her life to fit into Ryan's small home. But she never complained, just integrated herself seamlessly into their chaotic routine. She learned Owen's bedtime preferences, figured out which coffee mug was Ryan's favorite, started a standing Tuesday dinner with Linda, where they watched cooking shows and critiqued the contestants. She became part of the family not through grand gestures, but through tiny, consistent acts of showing up. Ryan's classes started going better once Aurora took over some of the logistics, picking up Owen from school on days when Ryan had late classes, coordinating with Diane about Linda's appointments, even helping him study by quizzing him on constitutional law while they did dishes together. "What's the standard for obscenity established in Miller versus California?" Aurora asked one night, elbow deep in soapy water. "Three-part test," Ryan recited. Whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find the work appeals to prurient interest, whether it depicts sexual conduct in a patently offensive way, and whether it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Correct? You're getting good at this. I have a good study partner. Aurora smiled. You know what's weird? I'm happier washing dishes in your tiny kitchen than I ever was closing million-dollar deals. That is weird. Also slightly concerning for your career. My career is fine. I hired a COO who's better at the daily operations than I ever was. Turns out, I don't have to do everything myself. Ryan stopped washing and looked at her. When did you do that? Last month. I was spending so much time here that I was neglecting the company anyway. So I restructured, delegated, gave myself the freedom to actually have a life. That's a big change. You're worth a big change. She rinsed a plate and set it in the drying rack. Besides, I like this life better. It's messier and more complicated, but it's real. It matters. Ryan pulled her into a soapy hug. I love you. I love you too, even though you're getting soap all over my shirt. Sorry. No, you're not. No, I'm not. They finished the dishes and collapsed on the couch where Linda was watching her cooking show and Owen was building an elaborate dinosaur habitat out of couch cushions. Dad, can Aurora help me with my science project? Owen asked. What's the project? We have to build a model of a prehistoric ecosystem. I want to do the Cretaceous period with volcanoes and everything. Aurora perked up. I'm great at building things. When's it due? 3 weeks. We can do that. Do you have cardboard, papier-mâché materials? Owen's face lit up. Can we get some? Tomorrow after school, we'll make the best dinosaur ecosystem your class has ever seen. Ryan watched them planning, his son's enthusiasm infectious, and felt a contentment he hadn't experienced in years. This messy, imperfect, beautiful life was exactly what he'd been too scared to hope for. That night, after Owen was asleep and Linda had retreated to her room, Ryan and Aurora lay in bed talking quietly. Thank you, Ryan said. For what? For not giving up on me. For pushing through all my fear and stubbornness and trust issues. You were worth pushing for. Was I, though? I wasn't exactly making it easy. Aurora rolled over to face him. Ryan, I've spent my whole life around people who made everything look easy. Perfect relationships, perfect families, perfect lives. And it was all fake. You're the first real thing I've found. So yeah, you were worth it. You are worth it. Ryan kissed her softly. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. You already do. You just need to believe it. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ryan didn't have nightmares about everything falling apart. Instead, he dreamed about the future, about Owen's high school graduation, about Linda's birthday parties, about growing old with Aurora beside him. Not perfect dreams, just possible ones. And possible was enough. 6 months after Aurora moved in, Ryan walked across the stage at his law school graduation, wearing a rented gown that was 2 inches too short and a smile he couldn't suppress. Owen was in the audience, screaming his name loud enough to embarrass both of them, and Aurora was filming on her phone despite the ceremony rules against it. Linda sat between them in a wheelchair. She'd insisted on coming even though she'd had treatment that morning and was crying openly. Ryan found them afterward in the chaos of graduates and families. Owen launched himself into Ryan's arms with enough force to nearly knock him over. You did it, Dad. You're a lawyer now. Not yet, buddy. I still have to pass the bar exam. But you will, because you're smart and you work really hard and you don't give up. Ryan hugged his son tighter, feeling the weight of 7 years of sacrifice suddenly feel worth it. Aurora appeared beside them, still filming. Can you stop recording? Ryan asked. Absolutely not. This is going in the family archives. We have family archives now? We do as of today. Linda reached up from her wheelchair and grabbed Ryan's hand. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They went out to dinner at a nice restaurant that Aurora insisted on paying for. Owen ordered the most expensive thing on the menu just because he could, and nobody stopped him. Linda managed half her meal before the exhaustion caught up with her, but she stayed at the table anyway, not wanting to miss a moment. Speech, Aurora said, raising her glass. No speeches, Ryan protested. Too bad. I'm making one anyway. She stood up and the table went quiet. 2 years ago, I walked into a bar expecting to win a bet. I was supposed to make someone fall for me in 3 months, collect my money, and move on with my life. Ryan nearly choked on his water. What? Aurora's smile was sheepish. Surprise? My best friend Charlotte bet me $10,000 that I couldn't make any regular guy fall in love with me. She thought I was too cold, too focused on business. I took the bet because I never lose. You were running a con on me? Ryan's voice was flat. At first, yeah, for about a week. Aurora sat back down, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze back either. Then I actually got to know you, and I realized I wasn't playing a game anymore. I was just falling in love. Owen looked confused. What's a bet? A promise about money, Linda explained quietly, watching Ryan's face. Did you tell Charlotte you lost? Ryan asked. I told her I was forfeiting, that the bet was off because what we had was real. Aurora's grip on his hand tightened. She laughed and said I'd lost anyway because clearly I'd fallen harder than you had. She was right. Ryan was quiet, processing. Part of him wanted to be angry, wanted to feel betrayed that their relationship had started as some rich person's game. But he looked at Aurora's face, saw the fear there that he might not forgive her, and realized something important. You're terrible at cons, he said finally. What? If you were actually trying to manipulate me, you would have hidden the bet forever. You wouldn't have hired Diane or helped with Owen or moved into my tiny apartment. You would have kept your distance and played it safe. I couldn't keep my distance. You wouldn't let me. No, you couldn't keep your distance because you're not actually cold or calculating. You just pretended to be for so long you started believing your own press. Aurora's eyes were shining. Are you mad? I was for about 30 seconds, but now I'm just glad you're bad at being the person you thought you were supposed to be. So we're okay? Ryan finally squeezed her hand back. We're okay. But you owe Charlotte that $10,000. Already paid her. She donated it to a children's hospital and told me I was an idiot for almost letting you get away. Smart woman, Owen interrupted. Can we get dessert now? This conversation is boring. Everyone laughed and the tension broke. They ordered dessert, chocolate cake for Owen, creme brulee for Linda, tiramisu to share between Ryan and Aurora. The sugar and the conversation flowed, and by the time they left, Ryan had almost forgotten about the bet entirely. Almost. That night, after Owen was asleep and Linda had settled in with Diane for the evening, Ryan brought it up again. Why did you really tell me? He asked. They were out on the building's roof, their usual spot when they needed to talk seriously. About the bet. You could have kept that secret forever. Aurora was quiet for a long moment. Because I don't want secrets between us. And because Charlotte's getting married next month. She wants me to be her maid of honor, which means you'll probably meet her. I didn't want her accidentally mentioning it and having you find out that way. You told me to protect me from being blindsided. Yeah. That's very different from telling me because you felt guilty. I felt guilty too, but mostly, I just wanted you to hear it from me. Aurora turned to look at him. Are you really okay with it? Ryan thought about it honestly. I think I'm okay with who you are now, and who you are now is someone who lost a bet and gained a life. That's not a bad trade. Best loss I ever took. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights. Then Ryan said, I have something to tell you too. Should I be worried? Depends on how you feel about career changes. Aurora sat up straighter. What do you mean? I got a job offer. Well, 2 actually. One from the district attorney's office here in Ravenport, entry-level prosecutor position, exactly what I've been working toward. That's amazing. Why do you sound worried? Because the other offer is from a nonprofit legal clinic in Portland. They focus on wrongful conviction cases. The pay is terrible, but the work it's what I actually want to do. What I've always wanted to do. Portland is 12 hours away. I know. Aurora was quiet, and Ryan could see her processing. This was the test, he realized. The real one. Not some manufactured bet, but an actual choice about whether their relationship could survive a major disruption. When do you have to decide? She asked finally. 2 weeks. And what do you want to do? I want to take the Portland job, but I can't ask you to uproot your entire life. You have the company here, and even with the COO running things, you can't manage it from across the country. And there's Owen's school and Linda's treatments and… Ryan, stop. Aurora put her hand on his arm. If you want the Portland job, take it. Just like that? Just like that. We'll figure out the rest. Aurora, this isn't simple. Nothing about us has ever been simple. We started with you working 2 jobs and raising a kid alone. We survived your mother's illness and my emotional unavailability and your complete inability to trust anyone. We can survive distance. Ryan shook his head. I don't want to survive distance. I want to wake up next to you every morning. Then I'll come with you. You can't just leave your company. Watch me. I own 70% of it. I can run the board meetings remotely and visit quarterly. The COO can handle everything else. Hell, he's already handling everything else. What about Linda? She needs to be near Dr. Patel for the trial. Aurora pulled out her phone and started typing. Dr. Patel, what's the name of that researcher in Portland you mentioned? The one running a similar trial? Ryan blinked. You're texting my mother's doctor at 10 at night? He told me to text him any time if I had questions. She waited for the response, then showed Ryan the screen. Dr. Sarah Chen at Portland General runs an identical trial protocol. Dr. Patel says he can transfer Linda's care if we want. You already looked into this. I started looking the day you mentioned applying to Portland jobs. I wanted to be ready in case you got an offer. Ryan felt something shift in his chest, the last piece of armor finally falling away. You were planning to move for me. I was planning to move for us. You, me, Owen, Linda. The whole chaotic package. What about Owen's school? Portland has excellent schools, and honestly, a fresh start might be good for him. New friends, new experiences, less association with his grandmother being sick all the time. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to find the flaw in the plan that would prove it was impossible, but he couldn't. Aurora had thought of everything, had planned for contingencies he hadn't even considered. You're serious about this, he said. Completely. Take the job, Ryan. Do the work you actually want to do. We'll make everything else work. Just like that. Just like that. Ryan kissed her then, deep and grateful and full of a hope he was finally learning to trust. When they pulled apart, he said, I need to talk to Owen first, and my mom. This affects them too. Of course. But Ryan, I think they'll surprise you. Aurora was right. The next morning at breakfast, Ryan laid out the situation. Owen listened carefully, occasionally interrupting with questions about whether Portland had good parks and if they had dinosaur museums. So we'd all move? Owen asked. Together? If everyone agrees, but it's a big change. Owen looked at Aurora. Would you come? If you want me to. And Nana? Linda, who'd been quietly eating her oatmeal, spoke up. I go where you go, sweetheart. Always have. Owen thought about it seriously, his 7-year-old brain working through the implications. Finally, he said, I think we should go. Really? Ryan was surprised. You'd leave your school? Your friends? Marcus is moving to Florida anyway because his dad got a job. And you said this Portland job is what you really want. You're always happier when you're doing what you want. When did you get so wise? I learned from you. You always tell me to try hard at things that matter. Owen took a bite of cereal, then added, plus Aurora showed me pictures of Portland online. They have a really big dinosaur museum. Aurora tried to look innocent and failed. Linda was smiling into her coffee. You already corrupted my son, Ryan said to Aurora. I prepared him for the inevitable. When did you show him pictures? Last week. I wanted to see if he'd hate the idea before I brought it up to you. Ryan looked around the table at his family, this strange, imperfect, beautiful family that had somehow formed itself around him when he wasn't looking. You all conspired against me. We conspired for you, Linda corrected. There's a difference. 2 weeks later, Ryan accepted the Portland job. The next 3 months were a controlled chaos of packing, selling furniture, finding a new apartment, and coordinating Linda's care transfer. Diane agreed to move with them, which was a relief. She'd become as much family as employee at this point. Aurora sold her penthouse and most of her furniture without a second glance. It was never home anyway, she said when Ryan expressed concern about her giving up so much. Home is wherever you are. Owen's last day at his Ravenport school was harder than expected. He cried when saying goodbye to his teacher, which made Ryan cry, which made Aurora tear up, and they all ended up eating ice cream in the parking lot to recover. "I'm going to miss this place," Owen said, looking at the school building. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but I'm excited for the new place too. Is that okay?" Ryan pulled his son close. "That's more than okay. That's exactly how you're supposed to feel." Linda's last treatment in Ravenport was bittersweet. Doctor. Patel hugged her, which was unprofessional but earned, and made her promise to send regular updates. "You're my success story," he told her. "Don't make me regret bragging about you to Dr. Chen. I'll do my best not to die out of spite. That's all I ask." The drive to Portland took 2 days because Linda couldn't handle more than 6 hours in the car at a time. They stopped in cheap motels and ate at diners, Owen narrating the entire journey like he was documenting an expedition. "Dad, we just passed a sign that said world's largest ball of string 50 miles. Can we go?" "No." "But it's the world's largest. It's still just string. You have no sense of adventure." Aurora, driving her own car loaded with boxes, texted Ryan, "We should go see the string." Ryan texted back, "Don't encourage him." "Too late. I already promised we'd stop." They ended up spending an hour at the world's largest ball of string, which was exactly as underwhelming as Ryan expected and exactly as exciting as Owen hoped. Aurora took pictures of Owen posing with it, adding to what she called their family adventure archive. Portland appeared through the rain on a Tuesday afternoon, the city spreading out beneath gray skies that somehow felt welcoming instead of depressing. Their new apartment was in a neighborhood with actual trees and parks, twice the size of the Ravenport place, and only slightly more expensive thanks to Aurora's insistence on covering the difference in rent. "I'm investing in our future," she said when Ryan tried to argue about the money. "Let me invest." Owen loved his new room. Linda loved the accessible bathroom with safety bars already installed. Diane loved that she had her own space instead of sleeping on a couch. And Ryan loved that for the first time in his adult life, he had enough room to breathe. The job started a week later. Ryan showed up his first day terrified and excited, ready to do the work he'd spent 7 years training for. His supervisor was a sharp woman named Patricia, who'd been fighting wrongful convictions for 20 years and had the scars to prove it. "We don't win often," she told him on day 1. "But when we do, we change someone's entire life." "Can you live with losing more than you win?" "I've been losing more than I win my whole life," Ryan said. "At least now I'm losing for something that matters." Patricia smiled. "You'll fit in fine here." The work was brutal and exhausting and exactly what Ryan needed. He came home most nights mentally drained but satisfied in a way the bar never made him feel. Aurora would have dinner ready. She'd learned to cook basic meals through trial and error, and Owen would tell him about his new school and his new friends and the awesome dinosaur museum they needed to visit this weekend. Linda's first appointment with Dr. Chen went well. The new doctor reviewed her file, ran fresh tests, and confirmed that the treatment was still working. "Dr. Patel did excellent work," Dr. Chen said. "We'll continue the same protocol." 3 months into Portland, Aurora's best friend Charlotte flew out to visit. Ryan finally met the woman who'd started everything with a careless bet and found himself liking her despite himself. "So you're the bartender who cost me 10 grand, Charlotte said when they met. "And you're the woman who thought Aurora was too cold to fall in love. Guess we both misjudged some things." Charlotte laughed. "I like him," she told Aurora. "He's got spine." They had dinner together, the 3 of them plus Owen, who was on his best behavior until dessert when he asked Charlotte if she was the one who made the bet about his dad. "Owen," Ryan started. "It's okay," Charlotte said. "Yeah, I made the bet. Want to know why?" Owen nodded seriously. "Because your Aurora spent so much time working that she forgot how to be happy. I thought if I pushed her into actually trying to connect with someone, she might remember. Turns out I was right." "So you're not a bad person?" "Jury's still out on that one, kid. But I love your Aurora, and I wanted her to have what I have with my fiancé. Someone who makes her happy." Owen considered this. "Okay, you can stay for dessert then." After Charlotte left, Aurora got a call from her COO. There was a crisis with a property deal in Chicago that needed her immediate attention. She spent 3 hours on the phone working through solutions, and Ryan watched her transform back into the sharp businesswoman he'd first met, confident, decisive, in complete control. When she finally hung up, she looked exhausted. "You miss it," Ryan said. It wasn't a question. Parts of it, the problem solving, the building something from nothing, the victory when a difficult deal closes. She sat down next to him. "But I don't miss the loneliness, and I don't miss feeling like work was all I had. You could go back. Full-time, I mean. If you wanted. I don't want. This life we're building, it's better than any empire I could create. It's messy and unpredictable, and sometimes Owen leaves his dinosaurs in my shoes, and Linda's medical bills are terrifying, and you work too many hours. But it's real. It's mine. It's ours." Ryan pulled her close. "Ours is better than mine ever was." Same. 6 months into Portland, Linda had another health scare, a bad reaction to a medication adjustment that landed her in the emergency room overnight. Ryan sat with her while Dr. Chen ran tests, Aurora stayed home with Owen to keep his routine normal, and Diane coordinated with the nursing staff like the professional she was. "I'm tired of hospitals," Linda said when she was finally stable. "I know, Mom. But I'm not ready to give up yet. There's still too much I want to see." "Like what?" "Like Owen graduating high school. Like you winning your first case. Like Aurora finally convincing you to marry her." Ryan blinked. "What?" Linda smiled weakly. "You think I don't notice? That girl's been ready to marry you since about month 3. She's just waiting for you to catch up. We've never talked about marriage. Because you're scared it'll jinx things. But Ryan, you can't keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Sometimes good things just stay good." Ryan thought about that conversation for days. He and Aurora had been together a year and a half now. They'd survived distance and illness and career changes and a cross-country move. They'd built a life together that felt solid despite its chaos. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for things to fall apart. He started looking at rings. The proposal, when it happened, was nothing like he'd planned. Ryan had been imagining something romantic, maybe on the roof of their building, like in Ravenport, or at the dinosaur museum Owen loved, or during a special dinner somewhere expensive. Instead, it happened on a random Tuesday night while they were doing dishes. Owen was in bed. Linda was watching TV in her room. Diane had gone home for the night, and Ryan and Aurora were standing at the sink washing and drying in comfortable silence when Aurora said something that made him laugh so hard he nearly dropped a plate. And suddenly, Ryan knew he couldn't wait another day. "Marry me," he said. Aurora froze, dish towel in hand. "What?" "Marry me. Not because it makes sense, or because we've been together long enough, or because it's the next logical step. Marry me because I love you. Because you lost a bet and gained a family. Because you moved across the country for a job I wanted. Because you do dishes with me and help Owen with science projects and sit in hospitals with my mother. Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I want to spend the rest of my life being grateful for the night you walked into my bar." Aurora was crying. "You don't have a ring." "I have a ring. It's hidden in my sock drawer because I was waiting for the perfect moment. But this is the perfect moment. Right here, doing dishes on a Tuesday." "That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard of." "It's the only proposal you've ever heard. And is that a yes or not?" Aurora dropped the dish towel and kissed him, soapy hands and all. Yes, obviously yes. They got engaged over the kitchen sink with pruned fingers and water all over the floor. And it was perfect because it was them. Messy and imperfect and absolutely real. Owen found out the next morning and immediately started planning the wedding. "Can I be the ring bearer? And can we have dinosaur decorations? And can Nana walk you down the aisle since you don't have a dad?" Aurora looked at Ryan, who shrugged. "Your wedding, your call." "Dinosaur decorations might be negotiable," Aurora told Owen, "but yes to everything else." Linda cried when they told her. "About damn time. You're not surprised?" "Sweetheart, I've been waiting for this since the day I met her. That woman was always going to marry you. You just took forever to figure it out." They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a Portland park. Owen was the ring bearer with a Triceratops pin on his suit jacket. Linda walked Aurora down the aisle because Aurora's father was dead, and Linda insisted. Diane cried harder than anyone. Charlotte flew in as a maid of honor and made a speech about how she'd never expected her stupid bet to result in an actual love story. The ceremony was simple. The vows were honest. Ryan promised to let Aurora help carry the weight. Aurora promised to stay even when things got hard. Owen promised to stop leaving dinosaurs in Aurora's shoes, which made everyone laugh. And afterward, at the small reception in a rented hall decorated with subtle dinosaur touches that Aurora had secretly allowed, Ryan looked around at his family and his friends and his wife, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not perfect. They still had struggles ahead. Linda's illness would always be a shadow they lived under. Money would always be tighter than Aurora was used to. Ryan's job would always be emotionally draining. Owen would hit teenage years eventually and bring new challenges, but they'd face all of it together. That night, after the reception was over and Owen was asleep at Charlotte's hotel room for the night, and Linda was safely home with Diane, Ryan and Aurora sat on the balcony of their apartment looking out at Portland's lights. "Did you ever imagine this?" Aurora asked. "When I first walked into your bar?" "Not even a little bit. I thought you were a rich woman slumming it for entertainment." "I was, at first. And now?" "Now I'm a rich woman who found out that the best things in life don't cost anything." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Your mom told me something at the reception." "What?" "That I lost the bet but won the prize." Ryan smiled. "She's right. We both did." They sat in comfortable silence, husband and wife now, partners in the messy, beautiful, complicated life they'd built together. And Ryan thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago, exhausted and lonely and convinced he couldn't have anything beyond survival. That man wouldn't recognize this life, wouldn't believe it was possible. But Ryan had learned something important. The best things were always the ones you didn't see coming. The ones that walked into your bar on a stormy night looking for a quick drink and ended up changing everything. Aurora squeezed his hand. "What are you thinking about?" "Just that I'm really glad you're bad at bets." She laughed. "Best loss I ever took. Best win I ever got." They went inside together, ready for whatever came next. Because that was the thing about love. It didn't make life easier or simpler or more predictable. It just made it worth fighting for. And Ryan had always been good at fighting for things that mattered.